Thank you very much, Gayatri, for this flamboyant introduction. I would like to thank the School of Law at Narsee Monjee Institute for inviting me, and to all the eminent professors and the amazing students. I was taken back to my experience back in the country. Working with students, as Ashutosh said, is indeed such a bliss. Well, I understand the value of time, so I would like to begin my talk by requesting you to think about the blindfolded figurine of Lady Justice, who is customarily portrayed with a sword in one hand and a pair of scales in the other hand. The sword signifies the power of the judiciary, while the scales symbolize the neutrality and impartiality with which justice is administered. The blindfold highlights that justice is blind and immune to all influences. Well, my dear audience, to me, it also implies a formalistic understanding of equality. And I find that very problematic, and excuse me for that, because it comes with the presumption that all are similarly situated and treated. But the truth is that denial and disadvantages across the globe have been normatively implied, structurally practiced, and socio-culturally imposed. As societies become complex, these denials and disadvantages, they get stamped at multiple levels. It is this understanding that led to the emergence of the idea of intersectionality, which took concrete shape in the discipline of law, particularly from the Black feminist critiques of the legal process. But over the years, it has become an important analytical framework in almost all the disciplines and has moved beyond simply being an academic theory to a way of being. But is intersectional thinking a new concept from the global north? Well, if we read the works of Savitribai, Jyotirao Phule, Periyar, Ambedkar, and many more, we will find that even before Crenshaw formally introduced the term in the 1990s, intersectional thinking was practiced in India, especially concerning the categories of caste and gender, which were seen as mutually reinforcing categories of marginalities. To understand intersectionality, we shall have to go beyond these universal narratives and adopt either the idea proposed by Gopal Guru in the context of Dalit feminism of letting them talk differently based on their unique lived experiences, or the idea of asking the other question proposed by Mari Matsuda, wherein she argues that if you look at something racist, ask, where is the patriarchy in this? And when you look at something which is homophobic, ask, where are the class interests in this? And the like. By asking the other question, we trigger a search for both the obvious and the non-obvious relationships of domination, which in turn help us to realize that no form of subordination ever stands alone. Sexism, casteism, racism, and several other forms of discrimination extend much beyond mere individual acts of prejudice, because prejudices, my dear students, are not isolated episodes, but consistent denials which are rooted in deeper structural spaces. Understanding intersectionality and the idea of indirect discrimination, the Supreme Court of India has documented the dangers of courts adopting a legal analysis that looks at discrimination only through a single axis. In doing so, the court argues, we treat identity as homogeneous or universal and totemic, thus making the minority experiences almost invisible. Keeping in tune with the changing social landscape and the historicity of systemic intersectional discrimination, Indian judiciary has welcomed the idea of substantive equality over formalistic equality. It has gone beyond the idea of intent and recognized the immeasurable pain of perpetuating historical disadvantage. It has built sensitivity regarding the disproportionate impact and the notion of reasonable accommodation, embracing positive rights and affirmative action. Justice Chandrachud in the Nitisha case states that systemic patterns of discrimination against a segment of society are concealed under the garb of norms, contextualizing denials, and perpetuating an unjust status quo. The adoption of Fraser approach makes Nitisha an important precedent, reinforcing the systemic discrimination model. In the Nalsa versus Union of India, the Supreme Court recognized that the principle of non-discrimination goes much beyond the mere prevention of discrimination. It should also imply a remedy for decades of systemic discrimination and victimization due to the differentness of their identities. Such and other like judgments, such as Navteej Singh Johar, Nas Foundation, Patan Jamal Wali, and many, many more, you are better equipped than me, indeed are a testament to transformative constitutionalism and exemplify social engineering. Marginality, my dear audience, is not just about social, economic, and political exclusion, but also reveals those wounded dignities and subjugated mental and emotional capabilities. Mirror comparator approaches like the idea of universal sisterhood, well, they conceptually fail to consider different needs and circumstances. It is because of this, what I understand as myopic understanding, that equality has merely been viewed as a philosophy of consistent treatment. Opening the gates of opportunity for all is not enough. Till the time all have the ability and capability to walk through those gates. To bring about social change, we might even have to challenge the criteria of access, since existing criteria of merit may itself reflect and reinforce existing patterns of disadvantage. As I conclude, I would like to tell you that India is currently undergoing a critical period, primarily because we are still colonized in our minds to the global north. Our values want to change, but our actions, that's the norms, they do not reflect it. Our daily interactions and behavior, that's the folkways, the informal norms, have welcomed new ideas. But my dear friends, the mores, the deep and the intense norms about what's right and what's wrong, they have not. We have one of the most treasured and celebrated cultures because it rests on an edifice called the collective. This is what has allowed the diversity to be weaved neatly. Social is harmonious and change can be orderly if we adopt a dignified stance towards every element of the society within this large collective called Bharat. With this, I end my address. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I'm actually speechless because it gave me a unique perspective on equality, and I never thought of this perspective before. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and expertise with us. Your presence here adds immense value to our conference, ma'am. Thank you so much. Our chief guest for today's session is a distinguished personality in the legal domain. I